You are now tuned in to the Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation, the place where stars and minds align.
Peace, you're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humbled host, Herut, and I got the good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Well, brother, staying busy, man, trying to get people the information for the destiny and enlighten, open that third eye so they can really see, what's going on in their lives and how to, and the best way that I could assist them in that regard. So just staying busy, brother. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. Got a lot of, little projects, things going on, a lot of, things that's in the works that's coming up and whatnot. But before I get into that, I want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group on Instagram at Push It Forward. That's PUSHITFWD. And Brother Ra, how can they get with Calipurusha Astrology?
Two main ways. You can hit me up on IG, Shechem Ra on IG, or you can find me on Facebook, Shechem Ra on Facebook, on FB. Some of y'all have been adding and kind of coming into the channel at Calipurusha Astrology on YouTube. So if you want to join in on there, make comments and send me insight on or send me questions there as well. That's been another avenue people have reached out to me on. So either one of those three, you definitely get a hold of me pretty quickly.
Good deal. So yeah, we're we're kind of rolling here. We're here at episode 11. We took the last week off, just to give it a break a little bit. This information is heavy. I know it's a lot of heavy lifting and stuff like that. But it seems that people are sticking with it. And it's inspiring them, to go and learn more, and they're asking for books and, different things like that. So, that's real encouraging, and really appreciate all the listeners and all the feedback that we get. What about you, Brother Rock?
Yeah, I've got a lot of people that's coming in, chiming in, which a brother definitely appreciates. Keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming. A lot of people really are taking this and using it for themselves and really looking at it, point blank. They're definitely leaning in and learning, and that's what this is all about. That's why we're here, is to give you insight and information that can, make this science a little bit more palatable. So, like I said, keep it coming, y'all.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how this brother's doing it, but we got a brother in prison that's a listener.
Wow, now that's heavy.
Yeah. So we're even permeating the walls, inside the walls and stuff like that. So that's definitely a blessing in itself, right there, or whatnot. So yeah, we've covered a lot of different topics thus far, and there's one area in life that's, very, 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 very interesting, and it's kind of been popping up on my radar a lot lately, and I think it's about time that we do a good show on this. Is that what are the past life implications of a chart? That's a huge debate within the religious and spiritual community, in regards to, have we been here before, or is, reincarnation real? What's the stick on it? But, in ancient times, we really didn't have a debate about that. It's pretty clear, in the way that, we observed life and, and observed our own lives, and just seeing the different things that you may, lean to without any outside input or anything like that. We just kind of was able to verify it, through a number of situations. And, today we're going to kind of, hit one angle of it, of actually seeing it in an objective form through a chart.
Okay.
Right? So, Brother Raw, what's some, why don't you go ahead and get us started off, just on, this topic, and, where we should, begin. How should we look at this subject?
Well, the science itself, astrology, and it is a science, y'all. I know some of us out here don't really acknowledge the fact that this is a scientific application of things, and there are individuals that, and here's the thing, right? For example, there's no way to measure certain things in nature. It just isn't, right? No one can measure the gravitons that the moon places on the planet Earth. No one has ever measured that. There's not a machine that they can produce on Earth that can literally say there's gravitons, right, that are influencing the planet, and here's how many, right, per the space or relative space between the moon and the Earth. That just doesn't happen. But what we know, and this is proven, right, through observation, and this is a science of observation, you will begin to understand that when you use this repetitively enough times, you see patterns, and the patterns become clear and concise, where you say one thing and it differentiates that person from all the people in the room, all the people in the building, all the people in the area, the neighborhood, right? It literally gets to the point where you observe the information and it becomes that concise, where you have no doubt that this is a science. But my point is that the moon makes and has an influence on the planet Earth. How do we know? Because we see the tides.
Yes.
Right? The tides have an ebb and a flow, a high tide and a low tide. Right. And of course, we can go on down the line to talk about how the moon affects, 70% of the body of the water of the earth. We're all made of 75% of water, and so forth. That's nothing that is new, right? They've shown statistically that people bleed more when there's a full moon, right? And even statistically speaking, there's an individual by the name of Michael Conklin. There's books that he's written on astrology that have shown, and he says that signs don't matter. Of course, well, if you're using an incorrect basis of astrology, which is tropical as far as the placements are concerned, you might say that, right? But he does show some statistics that shows that planets in the midheaven is typically indicated as the 10th house of a chart. Any planets there have a specific impact on a person's career or what they do on a global or mass scale. So, and this is an individual that literally did it intentionally to try to prove something and prove the opposite. He proved it was true. And there are people that try to fudge his information. That's not the topic of the class, or a topic of the discussion, rather. But Michael Conklin has had some reputable information to show that there are influences that they can substantiate with planets and placements in certain aspects of the sky. So this stuff is a science.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not a science as in like we use it as in meteorology. And guess what? Meteorology is not 100% correct all the time.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. I'm taking what they said is going to be rain, and I get a dot, a drizzle, maybe if that, right? So, these sciences, it's not a science as in to say, computer science or medical science, right? It's not that type of science, right? But it is a science nonetheless, because we can use things and observe things statistically speaking over a period of time and gain some insight through those patterns that repeat. So with that being said, right, when we talk about karma, karma is how we literally accumulate over lifetimes what they call in the Eastern tradition, and especially in India, called Sanchita karma. There's 3 different types of primary karma in the East. You have Sanchita karma, which is like your karmic bank, right? It's like your karmic, your karmic pool of what has happened in all of the things that you've accumulated around what we call your ba, right? Or what they call your soul in other traditions, right? In the Western tradition. Your Atma is the other term, right? Your para Atma, right? So the Atma, or the soul, right, or the Ba, has these accumulations that have accumulated over lifetimes, right? And they gain a momentum, and that pool from which they're pulled from is called Sanchita karma. That's one level of karma. The next level of karma, and they have different karmic theories. This is just one, right? They have other karmic explanations to try to gain an understanding of how this stuff works. But the next one is called Prabdha. Prabdha karma. Prabdha is the karma that's being spent as we speak. So this life is Prabdha, right? Prabdha means that when the time you hit the ground running, you take that first breath, right? That's Prabdha. All that's being exhumed and exhausted through this life, and that's what a chart is Prabdha karma. We really can't see Sanchita karma through this.
Yeah.
Right? Then you have what's called Kriyaman karma. And for lack of better words, it could be translated as future kind of karma, but it's really not future karma. What it is this. So, and one positive karma can't override a negative. That's a misnomer. So you think that you can do something positive and get out of a negative. It doesn't work that way. Right. You still have to receive what you can do is burn the seeds of karma through spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Right. And that burning the seeds of the karma literally will render certain karmas innate. But there's an old saying, right? Good karma and bad karma are still relative. Good karma is like gold chains, and bad karma is like iron chains. Still chains.
Yeah.
Right. But nonetheless, right, you can burn the seeds of karma at their root, right, through practices that take you back to deep states of consciousness repetitiously, and living those states of consciousness in certain situations, what we call crossroads. And that's what we call asamprajnata, right? Samadhi, right? And nirbija, right? Asamprajnata samadhi, when you literally burn the seeds up, right? You're going deep within your being to literally go beyond, right, certain things. And that's when you can change your destiny.
Yeah.
That's when you can literally alter the course of what you've expected in your Prabdha. But Sanchita, right, and some of the Sanchita still burn up, but you literally have to still go through other processes to get to that. And it's even told in the Kemetic psychostasia is what they call it, right? Where you see the scene and you see the Ani, right? He's going before the scales, and his heart is weighed against the feather, right? Right. That's the Prabdha karma process of being weighed, and his Samchita karma is the asar, waiting for him to realize himself, right, on the other side. Well, guess what? If that karma has been found wanting, this Prabdha that you didn't live according to what you knew, what your conscience told you to do, right? You don't get to go to see yourself. You don't get to go to become the true self. Some people say, say it in different ways. I'm not going to get into that. That would take us down a whole nother path. But nonetheless, Amawit is waiting for you. And if you haven't lived this life, this Prabdha properly, you are recycled and reborn.
Yeah.
Right. So, right, karma is a very deep science, excellent materials. I won't get into naming books because people then will start to take those books and, right, I kind of keep people along the lines of, study, Meta, study things like that, because that really helps you live this karma properly. Right? We can theorize all kind of stuff, but to live it properly, our ancestors told you your heart should be light as a feather. And with that being said, this life, right, but is the karma that we kind of are learning to master from the Sanchita karmic data bank. But the Kriyamana karma is what we can do to begin to try to shape and alter our being along the lines of getting out of the karmic debt that we're in. Right? And I could be on this show just talking about karma alone, right? The concepts and the understandings of how karma truly works. But Kriyamana karma is where you begin to, right, it's like Kriyamana karma is like arrows in your quiver, right? You have arrows, you have a quiver, and you have a bow, right? And actually the word sin means to miss the mark, right? Keep note of that, right? Sin means to miss the mark. Doesn't mean you're bad or good. It just means you missed the mark.
Yeah.
Right? Well, when you're using Kriyamana karma, you're using, right, your actions, which is what karma is, right? You're using actions, right, to literally aim, right, properly, right, so that when you release the arrow of action, right, it hits dead center, so that you begin to shape, right? There's an old saying that thoughts, right, intentions create thoughts, thoughts create, patterns, patterns create karma, right? Well, we're reading the chart as a pattern of thought that we can say with some probability, because you can only read 75 to 80% of a chart at a given time, provided the individual is trying to use Kriyamana karma. But if you're not trying to live up to that level of truth, trying to change things as they go and try to literally hit the mark, I can read about 85 to 90% of your chart with accuracy. Because you're not changing the destiny. You're literally becoming an automaton or a robot, where you're just living out the creeds of the Prabda, and you're only going to go through the process of just living it out to that point where now you're just reflecting what is on the paper. You don't have to literally give in to the propensities. Those propensities are there to teach you what you didn't learn, right? Or to literally give you things that you did learn, but to use them properly. So, the chart itself is nothing but a pattern. The patterns create actions, actions create karma, right? So, in a chart, the first place you really can hone in on, right, bar none, anytime you want to just look at your chart, your children's chart, your mate's chart, your parents' chart, right, grandparents' chart, look at the fifth house. The fifth house is called Purva Punya, right? It's the fruit of your past lives. And I say past lives, really your past life, right? Because remember we talked about the bank of Sanchita karma. That's so much overwhelming. That's where we talk about the Akashic records, is where the Sanchita karma can be read.
Yeah.
Right. And that takes a very high-ordered being. And I know some people have this mediumistic thing that they do. I get it, and I'm not knocking that, because that is very much is real. People can read your past lives if they have a very disciplined life. If you come in there, the lady smoking cigarettes, right, and they got people rolling dice on the floor next door, and she, cooking bacon in the back, you might want to be a little leery at what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
Just be mindful, right? I've had some people that I've seen, and they are mediumistic, but the message is a little skewed.
Yeah.
But if you see they're very disciplined, live a very quaint lifestyle, they don't have a whole lot of trappings, they live very simple, right? They have a very disciplined and orderly way of doing things. They have a very reserved disposition, right? And they're meditative by nature. Then you might have a little more, you have a better chance of getting some good insights from that individual, because mediumism is a very real part of, like people say psychic, I say mediumistic, but it is very real, right? Because we're all psychic in some way, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the fifth house is a house that we can literally understand purva punya, right? Or past life credit. And the fifth house is the house that is almost the quintessential house of the chart. A lot of people think that the ninth house is, and it is to some degree. But if you count, and what we'd use bhavat bhavam, right? The fifth house is the ninth from the ninth, right? So it's the higher octave of the ninth house. Literally, it is what is coming in with you as you incarnate in this particular present time and space. So when you read the fifth house, planets that are placed there hold a great weight and deal from what you actually have accumulated in your past life.
Yeah.
Right? And so you'll find, for example, that people with Mars in the fifth house, right, have a high propensity for being able to deal with engineering, being able to deal with as well sports, athleticism. They deal with things as far as like electricians, things that deal with very high energy things, right? They brought that with them. Now, provided the planet is well situated, meaning that the karmic emphasis is not on lessons more than it is gifts, because you can come in with lessons more than per se gifts, and usually you get a little bit of both either way. But if it's placed in a certain position and it's placed strongly, you have more gifts. There's some gifts that come with the curses, and you can flip it. If its propensity is challenged, there's more curses than there are gifts, even though there's still gifts with it, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
The other thing is that you can see purva punya through who we bring into this world. Whoever you bring into this world is literally the beings that come through you, and they're the ones that are waiting on you through the relationships that you've obtained in the past lives. We'll call them children, right? Right. Your children tell all, right?
Yeah.
The apple don't fall too far from the tree, right? But the fifth house is a house of gifts, talents, right? Because the fifth house is the reason why it's quintessential. When I say quintessential, it's key, it's central, it's important. It has a primal place, right? Because it's the third house from the third. Right? The third house, if you count from, this is called bhavat bhavam. This is a technique that we use in Eastern astrology to literally see the inner workings of a house. So you want to see, right? Let's look at it from this perspective. Quick tidbit. The sixth house is the house of enemies. Well, if you count the sixth from the sixth, it becomes the 11th. The 11th house are your friends. So what is the old saying? The enemy of my enemy is my what? Friend. That's right. So the 11th house, right, becomes your friends because it is sixth from the sixth.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the same thing applies with the fifth house. It's the third from the third. So your hands, your efforts, right, your intellect, right, is your third house. Well, that which is doubled becomes your intelligence, and literally the fifth house is your intelligence. It's what you bring with you in this life from the past. So if you find Jupiter in the fifth house, the person is a teacher. They try to promulgate or promote knowledge in some form or fashion, and they usually have a certain relationship with their children. The children come out and they're very mannerable. They're very high ordered, right? They don't usually talk back. They usually follow instructions very well, because Jupiter is literally bringing that past life energy through, and the people that come through you, which is your children, the house, the fifth house, which is the window through which it comes through, literally shows that Jupiter gives you a sense of, I don't say enlightenment, but knowledge, right? The gift is knowledge, right? If the sun is in the fifth house, right, that means that person has a keen intelligence, very keen, very sharp individual, but they usually only have one child, right? It's very interesting how this stuff, and I'm telling you, you'll see it over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? The patterns of karma, right? So the fifth house is that Purva-punya, the past life credit, what we bring with us, how we literally come in, and what is kind of coming with us that is innately there with us, right? The talents, if you will, right? When we say intelligence, I'm not talking about intellect, right? Your intelligence. The fifth house is the second from the fourth, meaning that it is the wealth of your the wealth of your education, the wealth of your home life, the wealth of how you were raised, which is, again, guess what? Your past life credit. Right? If you have a home life that was a certain way, and the fifth house is situated in a certain way, fourth house is home, fifth house is your intelligence, then literally this is the wealth that's gained from how you're raised. And you're raised, the way you're raised literally is a feed-in from the past life. Right? Right? It gets real, I don't want to get too complicated, because it gets real hairy when you get to really looking at all the intricacies of it. The fifth lord also tells a great deal on how this person, how an individual is going to deal with their past life credit. Yeah. Right? Aspects to that fifth house, to the fifth lord, conjunctions to the fifth lord, right? And the fifth lord through all the other divisional charts. All these things tell very specifically how you came in with credit from another life. So that's one aspect of reading past lives. Now, again, the whole chart is the past life, y'all. Let's just keep it a buck. Everything in your whole chart is here because you reincarnate. You were reborn, rather. Some people are reincarnated. That's when you don't get caught up with Amuhit. But many people are reborn. Most people are reborn, right? And so, right, when you are reincarnated, and people say, what's the difference? Quick tidbit, right? When you're reincarnated, you pick up where you leave off. You get parents, family, structure that literally supports you in the ability to literally come in and take over and go further in your spiritual development and growth. Right. You remember your past lives, not to say consciously, but subconsciously a little more. You have more what they call deja vus, and you have these, I know this. You get people that come to you that give you insight, help, right? Versus starting off in a clean slate. Right.
So, I don't know if you was going to go there. And you ain't got to go too deep into it, but what's some indications of that, in a chart?
Well, that it would take us down a whole road, right? But let's put it to you like this, right? Let's give an example of the fifth lord being in the 12th house, right? You'll find that these, a lot of times, not all the time, because everything is contextual in astrology. I cannot tell people 1,000 times over. There's no way I can read one placement and it's going to give all of what we're talking about, because there's certain things that can be placed and can override or subdue or enhance certain placements. But you kind of use it in a general rule, and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to the real crux of it all. And then you say, that's why this is what it is. But you'll find that many times people with the fifth lord in their 12th house, right, a lot of times come with that loss of they feel lost, right? They feel like they just can't find the thing that they're supposed to do. I'm not talking about your career. That's not what I mean. I'm literally talking about feeling and knowing that you are on the right path. Right? And they'll meander many times. Right? They'll wander from path to path. They have like 7 paths they're following at once. They're like Buddhist, they're Christian, right? They're 7-day Adventist, right? I mean, their path is literally combobulated with all these other things. And then, certain people come in, they're just dead on. Like, they just do that, and they're on that path, and they're dead in. That's the 5th Lord in one of the very more powerful houses. Right?
Yeah.
And that person literally is coming back with through a reincarnated process. Right? You see that the person's mother will support them. How do we know? Because the 2nd house from the 4th is the 5th. The support is your 2nd house. Your family is your support. Or your mother, right? If she supports you, it's the 5th house.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The 5th house is 9th from the 9th. So your father supports you too. Or he doesn't detract from you. See? So then you can see, so the 5th house, 5th Lord in the 12th house. Not every time, because sometimes it can be very powerful as well. It just depends on how it's placed. But if it's not placed very well, you can pretty much show that this person has a hodgepodge of paths. Right? They don't feel the strength of they don't feel the strength of their destiny calling forth. They're kind of like, and they may get it late. They usually get it later in life is what it is, right? They kind of wake up at the last hour. Right? I've been doing this since I've been my 20s, right? In fact, even before I was 20, I was doing this kind of same thing. I just kind of sidetracked in my Rahu period. That kind of knocked me off a little bit because Rahu, in my person's chart, is very situational. It is very strong in certain regards. So, right, Rahu can take you off of that to give you certain lessons. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, right?
Okay.
But bar none, right? The 5th house, the 5th Lord, where it's placed, if it's in the 12th house, if it's in the 8th house, if it's in the 6th house, is not so bad. 6th house is a house that literally can strengthen it by going through obstacles, by facing your demons, quote unquote, as they say. 6th house is one of the houses that's really not a bad house. I don't say bad. None of the houses are bad, y'all. Let me say that. Let me qualify this. No house is bad, right? But there are houses that present certain challenges that are seemingly insurmountable until we learn certain lessons in life, right? So the 12th house is one of those. You'll find that the person will only have 1 or 2 children. Why? Because it can only maximize so much karmic. They can only maximize so many beings to come in through them because they can barely handle themselves. Right? The 12th house is a house that is the house of so-called self-undoing. Right? That's a house where we kind of try to escape reality.
Yeah.
And if your 5th Lord is in the 12th house and it's really situationally unpleasant for this, what we call comfortability zone, because no comfortability is a killer, as we both know, brother, right? Comfortability is a killer, right? But nonetheless, that person is uncomfortable with their destiny. Right? Uncomfortable with what it is that they have to do. They don't really feel strongly about their path in life. They don't really kind of know, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? Or, should I marry this brother or should I marry? Right? Because guess what? Here, talk about the 5th house again. The 5th house is the 11th from the 7th. So it's the gain that you gather from your marriage. 11th house is gain, right? We'll count from 7th house. We come all the way to the 5th house. So your wife literally will be supportive if the 5th house is placed and 5th Lord is placed well.
Yeah.
And if you have a support in your mate, guess what? You do very well in life. So you see how pivotal this Purva Punya thing is, right? This fifth house lord and placement, right? Because I know you didn't know we was going to get that deep, brother. I know, but I got you, right? I got you. Right? I know you. Because, y'all, Harut is no joke. He's sharp on this, y'all, for real. This brother is no joke. He definitely has a keen understanding on this science. But, you know, I got something for the brother, too, right? I got something for everybody. So the fifth lord, fifth house, literally is your karmic, right? Kind of like credit card, right? You got, right, good credit or bad credit. Look at your fifth house, right? And the planets of the Lord of the fifth house, right? And with that said, right, because I don't want to get too deep, right? Because trust me, right, this stuff goes way far beyond what you can imagine. But I'll tell you one thing, though. Most Pisces ascendants, because that fifth lord is the moon, Cancer is the fifth house, I can tell you, brother, many times, and I'm talking about almost, I would say 7 out of 10 times, and that's a pretty good propensity. Pisces ascendants have girls.
Yeah.
Right? So that fifth house, even though it may not even have any planets in it, the moon ruling it brings the karmic inlet of female entities through the life pattern. That's how powerful the fifth house is, y'all. Right? And they're all powerful. Each house is powerful. Don't tell me. Somebody said, well, what about the 12th or what about the 9th and all that? Yeah, they're all powerful. But the fifth house has a very specific placement in that it does give you a quick way to know if this person is coming through with this kind of good credit deal. Right? K2 in the fifth house, right? And that's going to lead us right into our next segment, right? K2 in the fifth house, right? Many times, and I'm saying many, I've done thousands of charts, y'all. And it's a repetitious pattern. K2 in the fifth house. Now, there have been some exceptions to the rule. There have been. I have seen it to where if Jupiter's placed well in the fifth house, the fifth lord is supported very well. The person comes in with very psychic children. The children can be very odd in nature, very advanced as well. But if it's very much mediocre, and most people's charts are mediocre, y'all. It just is, right? They're not all bad. It's not all good. It's kind of like in the middle, kind of. Usually everybody kind of is in the middle. You know, there's an old saying that, right? You know, most people lie in the middle except the saint and the true criminal. And the true saint and the saint and the criminal are the same thing on opposite ends of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because everything's relative. But most people's karma, most people are mediocrity at best. But if it has a mediocrity or mediocre, or let's say maybe even towards that scale of the where it kind of wanes more than it's waxing, then that person with K2 in the fifth house will have a child that will give them literally problems. The child may come in with some physical defect. I have to tell it harshly because the science is very real. It's not here to candy coat things. And I'm not here to tell you that, oh, it's all archetypal. No, it's not. These are things that we read with impeccable integrity. We can see it, right? There's nothing you can hide from a true astrologer. You can't. Nothing.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, K2 in the fifth house will many times remove that person from the responsibility, right, of having children. And if they have children, their children are literally challenged in a major way, right? And so Rahu in the fifth house will not do what Ketu will do. Ketu is a planet that's called a Chitta Karaka. It's headless. right? So the being comes through. Now, many times it can make that individual themselves very spiritual, though, right? The fifth house is the house of mantra, right?
Yeah.
In the West, right? For folks that are still, coming out of the Judeo-Christian Islamic persuasion, right? Prayer is the fifth house, right?
Yeah.
Prayer in a very spiritual sense, not just because you're getting on your knees and asking for that $300,000 that you need. I'm talking about prayer and the power of it that comes through intent, right?
Would you say maybe even people who speak in tongues?
No.
No. Okay.
Good point, bro. No, we're not talking about tongues, right? We're talking about a silent aspect of things. In fact, they tell you in the Bible, when you want to pray, go into your closet.
Yeah.
We're talking about the intent, powerful intent, powerful single pointedness, right? Which is what true quote unquote prayer is, because prayer doesn't have to contain words, right? It literally it doesn't. But mantras are a form of what they would say is considered, prayer, like rosaries and things like that, repetitious things like that, right? Using the mala with 108 beads, right? That kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about, fifth house stuff. Because all it is creating an intent, right?
Yeah.
It's changing your mental patterns to match something else, right?
Yeah.
So the fifth house is that. It is that. And if you practice that in a great deal in the past life, your fifth house will be very prominent in this life. But when you have K2 there, right, that person can literally go there very quickly. They can go to the level of intent that you and I probably look at each other like, whoa. They're gone somewhere else, right? They're literally in a state of inner concentration very quickly. But in the world that we live in, most people are looked at, they're a little off, odd, they're special. Well, the children come through that way too. And the children, because they come through a vector that is powerfully karmic, and we're going to talk about just that, the Rahu K2 axis, which is another way that we see karma in a chart, right? K2 in the fifth house is literally that potent state of being, right, in the fifth house, where that person is singularly focused. But you know what? Sometimes singularly focused can be called autistic. Savants. Right? Mm-hmm. And they can have children that are savants. How hard is it to deal with an autistic child? Whoa. Right? It takes your whole life over when you're doing it right. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying, but Rahu in the fifth house doesn't do what a K2 in the fifth house will do. It makes the children, right, rebellious. Right? And I'm telling you, bro.
Yeah.
They literally, now of course we got to look at the fifth lord aspects, all of that, right? We have to look at the D5, right? The D7, right? And people say, well, the D7, the Satam, I'm talking about the Saptamsha, which is a Varga chart. We'll get more into these things as we have more conversations on, Cosmic Convo, because that's what it is. We're talking about cosmic conversations. So we'll get more into some of those things, not in depth, because those things need to be taught in a very sterile environment where you're learning and you're literally not having me go through different subjects. We focus, and that's why I teach classes on these things. And if you're interested, again, hit a brother up. Let me know. You can definitely get at me, and we can go deep, provided that you're in that environment. So,
yeah,
right. Rahu in the fifth house can create rebellious children, right? Children that literally have a mind of their own. You can't even you can barely impose on them, right? Because it's a past life thing. Right. It's literally you're taking in and bringing children in that are game changers, not only in your life, but in the lives of other people. So they said, man, look at that dude's kids, man, look at her kids. Whoa, they off the chain. That's the Rahu in the fifth house, right? Right? Like, man, they got a tribe of knuckleheads over there, right? Well, yeah, because the person's bringing these beings through as a karmic lesson. Because they themselves display some of those characteristics. So, with that being said, right, and again, you can have Jupiter in the fifth with Rahu. That has changed the whole game, right? You can have Mars in the fifth with Rahu. That's going to change the game again. You can have the fifth lord with an exalted Jupiter. That's going to change the game again. So all of these are game changers. They can offset a lot of these things, but you will see something odd, out of character, not in the norm of the person goes through school, college, and they go through a very average life. And who that normal is becoming very unnormal now, right? For the most part in this world, right? But you'll still see something that is out of character from what you would picture about a child and the way they should be, quote unquote, right? So Rahu and Ketu, we're going to leave the fifth house. We got a little bit about the fifth house, and I say a little because it is a little. There's a lot more to the fifth house, y'all, right? But we got a little bit of understanding of what the karmic inlays of what Purva Punya is, or past life credit, right? Right. And again, if you see Rahu or Ketu in there, right, you'll see that the past life credit, right, it's not a Visa, it's not a American Express, it's a prepaid, right? Right, they got a prepaid, right, and the prepaid is running on low, right? I'm just I'm just making fun, y'all. But nonetheless, right, I don't want to make light of anyone's karma. That's not it. But I'm just saying that to give a good consistent understanding of what it is in the real world that we live in, these are the kind of ideas that you have to kind of connect and be abstract and related to an analogy, right? To bring it down home to people, right? But if you see Jupiter exalted in the fifth house, man, they got a black card, right? And they come in and they do things very easily, right? Just with ease. Like, wow, like, look at that, man. Dude didn't have, like, why did he have it so easy? Well, he did things in another life, typically the past life, that wore very well in this life, right? He may have given greatly to his teachers, to his spiritual we don't say organization at that time, church, temple, right? He may have given inordinately. He may have spent time in that temple to the point where he lived in the temple. Well, it comes through with you.
Yeah.
And that's the fifth house. Now, Rahu and Ketu, right?
Yeah.
Are the next way that we begin to see karma in a chart. Specifically more Ketu than it is Rahu. Ketu is the inlet of karma. Rahu is the outlet of karma. Right. So Ketu is literally, if you would like to see how someone's childhood is, let's say they're 60 years old, you get a guy in front of you, a lady in front of you, and they're 60, and you don't know them, right? There's several places you can look. One, of course, is the second house, because it is the childhood. It is, bar none, the childhood of the chart. The boyhood, girlhood, whatever. But you can also look at Ketu. And the childhood is literally what happens is, so when we're born, right, not all of us is present when we're literally in this physical form until about 7, right? When the fontanel closes, right? Up until then, the fontanel is still open, and there's still karmic programming, right? Karmic residuals that is filtering through to the individual. And 7 is a very specific number, because 7 is when Saturn makes its first square to itself in the chart. Saturn is the planet of crystallization, right? So the person is now crystallized. That's why these years, those formative years, brother, and you about to have seed come through. Congratulations on that, my friend. Those formative years are crucial.
Appreciate it.
The womb womb is crucial, right? Because the crystallization process is culminating, and it'll culminate up until 7. When a child is 7, you can pretty much guarantee that's how they're going to be. Now, if you cut 7 in half, that's 3.5, right? Well, the terrible 2s, and I'm going to tell you, brother, I have 3 children, the terrible 3s too, right? Right? 2 and 3 is when you literally have putty in your hands, right? And you can titillate and bring in the positive karmic inlet, right? So that they can get the best of what it is they were supposed to get in this life through you and through the mother. But the fontanel is not closed. It's very open, right? Children are in that alpha state constantly, right? So they're in between worlds, right? The past life is still coming in and manifesting through situations, through family members, through experiences in school, through the parents, through health, through TV, through music, through all of those things. And so K2 is in the story of Svrabanu, right, which is the demon. And I'm not talking about demons as in like Satan and the devil and all that. I'm talking about the aspects of us that are propensely powerful and without conscious guidance, right? That power part of us, right? It's a demon called Svrabanu. He was cut, right? His head was severed, right? And where the head was severed, the head becomes Rahu and the rest of the body becomes K2, right? So K2 literally means that part of us that has no head, or that part of us that has no control, or hence that part of us that is from something beyond our conscientious understanding, which is the past life, right? So that K2, wherever you see it, it is literally the childhood and the connection to the past life, right? So the childhood, because we know that the fontanel doesn't seal until 7, until Saturn makes its crystallization process known. That means that up until that point, the past life is still there in miniature form. Right? So you see some children, they come in and you're like, wow, man, that little kid's gonna be a little such and such. He's a little genius. Or, wow, that kid's got a smart mouth. And say, oh, it's the parents. Many times I've seen it that the parents don't have certain characteristics that the child will propensively have. Now, it's rare because a lot of times the child is nothing but a sponge, and he's receiving what the parents is. But guess what? That's who he chose to be born through. Or lack of better words, defaulted in being born through, right? Because when you choose, you're reincarnated. When you default, you're reborn. So you see many times people will be reborn, and the parents are just, rab-nab cursors, right? Just every other word is B and F and B and, right, MF and MF. And the child's going to do that too. But they're born into that karmic environment because K2, right, and the Lord of K2, I won't get into the Lord, but just K2 in its placement is going to show a strong propensity towards that element of unsavory atmospheres. Right? So, with that being said, right, then you get to see where a person is coming from and where they came in through, right? And how it's coming in. So, for example, let's talk about an actual example, right? Now, I'm going to talk about anyone's personal example. I'm not going to use any stars. I'm not going to do that. We'll just use a placement of K2 in one of the signs, right? So, let's say K2 in Capricorn, right? So, K2 in Capricorn means that individual comes in with a very autocratic, very organized and structured disposition, right? They come from a past life where things were very much cold and matter of fact. They come from a past life where things were very corporate in its disposition, right? And so they come to literally, and you see that they come into the childhood and their parents are very much cold. The parents can be very much matter of fact, duty oriented. The children will come in and the parents will just give them the basics, not all the time, because again, there's many factors that will augment this particular placement. But I can guarantee you, the person will be a staunch individual, right? They'll be very much duty oriented, not say trustworthy, but they will organize themselves around making sure they take care of business. Okay, the opposite one side always creates the opposite effect. So they come in to learn to be nurturing. They come in to learn to be affectionate. They come in to learn how to grow and to develop the concern and welfare for others beyond their own ring past, not a circle. And even within their own circle, they still have to develop that mothering, nurturing quality. And even for men, right? We still have to learn that side of ourselves that literally brings us to a very compassionate understanding about things, where we can literally feel other people's pain. That's what Rahu and Cancer is, the lesson plan is. Right? So K2 in the last life shows that they were literally, may have been in a place where, right, it was just the order of the day that you would do what you do what you were told to do. And they did it. They did it. But they didn't receive that, it's okay. It's going to be okay, baby. Let me help you out. No, I'm doing it because I love you, not because I have to. Right? That kind of motherly or home-like environment. Because the fourth house is also home. And Cancer is akin to, it's not the fourth house, but is akin to fourth house type things, where Cancer is that part of us that literally is the part that we become devoted, right, to something and nurture it to its fullness. So you'll see that pattern over and over and over and over and over again, right? That's how you know the past life was that way, right?
Yeah.
And so they have a strong sense of commitment, right? Strong sense of commitment, right? They are not very vulnerable, right? They're learning to integrate their feelings, right? That's Rahu in Cancer, K2 in Capricorn. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah.
And you can use this with any of them. They all work this way. Right. That's the phenomenal thing about this science. You don't have to have all of the kits in caboodle. You just have to have some things that work. And when they work, they work. Right. You just add nuances to get the real situational picture. Then that's when you begin to read a chart, you read a destiny, and you can articulate certain things that have happened and will happen. But in the general sense, this is still true. Right? Right. They have very strong boundaries as well. K2 in Capricorn. Very strong boundaries. Don't cross over here. They won't let you in very easily, right? The past life was very much guarded, right? So You want to do another one? Let's do another one, right? Let's do another K2. Let's see. We'll do K2 in, let's say K2 in Libra. That's a good one, right? So K2 in Libra,
Okay.
right? This life, and I'm gonna start the other way now, because now we're gonna look at from Rahu, because Rahu is the what we are here to learn type deal, right? Right. Because it's still residual of the past life, where this is something that we have come to, right, learn. And the past life was literally spent on helping others, right? Being completely selfless, right? Always trying to cooperate with people, right? Having that need to fulfill other people's needs. Feeling unsatisfied by not having the acceptance of others. Well, in this life, they come to be a little aggressive. They come to learn a little bit about, my brother, selfishness. Healthy selfishness, though. People say, how can that be? You know, people that give and give and give till they can't give no more, and then they got nothing to give themselves. That's Rahu and Aries. And then it kicks in and they become very aggressive. Because they're still learning it. Right? They're still learning how to be balanced with my needs and others' needs. Right? They've given so much that they literally don't know how to commit, because they're like, I've committed so much of myself in the past. Now how do I be focused on myself? So I don't want to commit. So they have a problem with balancing that commitment to others and a commitment to themselves. Right? Yeah. They were literally taken advantage of in the past life. So they come to defend themselves in this life and to learn that. And you will find that they will defend themselves in a very unbalanced way. Right? They're learning to be not codependent, but what? Independent.
Independent.
Right? Rahu and Aries. Right? Ketu and Libra. Well, guess what? In the childhood, they were trying to fight in order to not be a doormat, and they literally are at times where they feel people have roughshod and ran over them. Right? Right? Yeah. They're learning to become disciplined, right, and not sway, right, between doing and not doing, right, like the scales. Yeah. Right. They want to be self-important, gain some recognition. Yeah. Right. So that's how you begin to see these patterns of karma. Right. So K2 is a keen example of past life stuff. Right. Right.
Very, very interesting.
They're hyper aware of others and hypo aware of themselves. And then they flip and become hyper aware of themselves and hypo aware of others. And that duality plays out constantly in their lives. Because Libra is a sign of the scales. Yeah. Right? So you see each one. Yeah. And you learn, wow, right? This is phenomenal. When I first learned this technique, I said, whoa, and it works every single time. Here's another one. We'll do one more, right? So Rahu in Virgo, Ketu in Pisces. Past life was spent being taken care of.
Yeah.
Past life many times was spent in a situation where they were either incarcerated, in a nun or a priest of an order, or in a situation where they were never stable, or they were extremely well taken care of, and so they literally in the past life, right, wandered many times. Right? They didn't have a care for details,
Yeah.
routines, right, organization, being on time, meeting deadlines. They just were carefree, and they very much are in this life. Well, Rahu says, you had that last life, and you'll see in the early childhood, they moved around a lot. The home was unstable. I'm not talking about fourth house. I'm not talking about fourth lord, second, nothing, moon, nothing. I'm talking about straight up just Ketu and Pisces. The parents didn't discipline in the sense, not in the sense of because right and wrong, but discipline in the sense of, hey, make your bed, brush your teeth when you go to bed, eat at a certain time. They ate at 2 a.m, right? 1 a.m. Lunch was when lunch was. Right. And here's the thing: the parent doesn't mean they're a bad parent or anything like that. It means the parent might have been working 2 jobs. So they're a latchkey kid, right? They kind of go with they do what they do, right? And get minimal guidance as far as dealing with the daily things of life. This life, they come to deal with that. So you'll find that they will be disorganized, right? You come in the house and it's like, whoa, man. Whoa, how do you live? Oh, I don't know. I do me, right? And their mess becomes their order, right?
Yeah.
But then when you try to say, well, hey, man, why don't you take your cabinet and organize it? Like, put the spices here, put your cans here, put this here. Right? They look at you like, what? I do need help with that. How do you know? Yeah. Because Rahu is now here to teach them to deal. They'll be late constantly. They'll always be dealing with something of a crisis type situation. Bar none, bro. You could take this to the bank, right? Now, Ketu Rahu's in there with Virgo. They become so much so it does the opposite thing, right? That they literally now, because the planet in that sign is stabilizing Rahu, and that's where these nuances come in, right? Ketu in Pisces and Jupiter, they're very spiritual, super spiritual. Like off the charts spiritual, right? Like, whoa, like to meditate all the time, right? So these things can be offset, what I'm trying to say. But without those filters, without those avenues being, controlled, when you just have straight that axis in there, you'll see it very consistently. Right. So that's how we know, right? And I'm not going to get into houses. I'll touch on a house just for a tidbit, right? For example, right? Ketu in the 7th. Right? Not sign, house, right? They're focused on themselves because they've already kind of done the marriage thing, right? The marriage thing is not so important to them. I can do without. I can be by myself. Huh? You're like, what? You don't nobody? Yeah. Or they get a very spiritual mate. And when you have a spiritual mate, guess what the mate is doing all the time anyway? Meditating. Right? So they really don't have that kind of conjugal connection, if you know what I'm saying. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, this is how you begin to play with it and literally see that K2 in the 7th house, right? And they were probably very hypersexual in the last life. Right? They got it in. Right? So kind of like, I'm good. And they will carry it over in this life, but they won't make any bonds. They won't bond. They won't connect. Right? K2, for a tidbit, y'all, wherever K2 is like Teflon.
Yeah.
Teflon non-stick, right? The grease slides right off, right? Right?
Yeah.
Takes very minimal effort to remove whatever is there, right? That's how you can begin to see K2 in the 7th.
Yeah.
Right? Let's flip it. Let's put K2 in the 1st. What do you think that's saying? That's saying that K2, exactly, they themselves,
they
they deny themselves, right? They deny themselves to the point where the person, the mate, becomes a god. How do we know? Because the story of Srabanu.
That's interesting.
What was he trying to do? He slipped in.
Yeah.
He's a demon, right? In the story, y'all. There's not no demon. This is not stuff where we talking about, some being that's floating around that is tempting people, and this is not what we're talking. This is all metaphysical, mythological stuff, right? But for the story's sake, it's a demon.
Yeah.
And the demons, right? And the divas, right? Or the asuras and the divas, right? And there's a whole backdrop to that conversation as well, because there's some racial hidden stuff with that story, but we won't get into that. That's a low another. But if you ever want to find out about that, you can read a book called The Most Ancient Indian Society, right? And that's tell you a lot about how some of this stuff is twisted just by the racial epithets, but the story still holds true. But in the story, the demons for Banu, the demons and the asuras they're churning Vasuki, which is the serpent, right? That brings forth that makes the world kind of move and turn, right? Vasuki is wrapped around, right, the world, and they move and they pull and push, right, the demons and the asuras. Make a long story short of the story, Vishnu was giving out the nectar of immortality, Soma, right? Amrit. They really call it Amrit, right? He's giving out Amrit, and Amrit gives you the power to live forever.
Yeah.
Right. So in the story, right, the demon was very crafty and very intelligent. And so it said, wait a minute. Vishnu is tricking us, the demons, because Vishnu disguised himself as Mohini, which is was a beautiful, most beautiful woman. And the demons were like, woo, we got to get some of that Mohini. They all went after Mohini, but Sravanu was like, nope, I see the trick. So it disguised himself. Whenever you see Rahu, Ketu stuff, disguise, right? Trickery, right? Smoke and mirrors, right? It disguised itself and went in as a god, as a diva.
Yeah.
And Vishnu was giving out the nectar of immortality, and boop, a drop fell on the tongue of Sravanu. And the sun and the moon said, hey, we got a demon here, right? But the demon was already amongst the gods. Well, fast forward, Rahu in the 7th house, the person's mate becomes godlike to them. That's how we know these things. That's how we make the associations, right? So the person's mate becomes their world. It's inflated, right? Wherever Rahu is, it inflates things. So they deny themselves, and the world of the mate becomes their world.
Oh, yeah.
They imitate the mate more than anything. Pretty crazy, right? Right. I'm right. You laughing, right? Right? Because you got a taste of that. One of the charts you was looking at, like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. right? And if the mate leaves, they lose themselves.
Yeah.
They have to re-pick up the pieces, and there's so many pieces, so many parts of themselves that invest in the mate. And the mate's fine. The mate got Rahu as his ascendant, so he gone. He's like, I'm out. I'm wild with it. Right? What's up? Next, right? It's deep stuff, right? This you could take this to the bank, y'all.
Yeah.
Right.
For real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For real. Right. Rahu. We'll do another one. Rahu in.
Let's do Rahu and Aquarius. Or are you gonna do houses?
We did. You want to do Rahu and Aquarius because I kind of left the signs alone a little bit. I was doing houses, right? But Rahu and because we did 3, right? We did.
Okay. I won't throw off your flow. Do your thing.
Hey, I'm all for it, right? Let's do it, right? Ketu in Leo, because we got to go to Ketu to get kind of Rahu, right? Ketu in Leo means a past life person was special, of prominence, right? Nobleman, king, right? Someone exalted. So they come in with that. They come in as a boss. They come in feeling important. They come in like, man, what? You know, you don't know who I am? Right? Self-important, automatically. And they have a sense of confidence out of this world. But Rahu says, well, got something for you, buddy. You need to now be driven and insatiably pointed, singularly pointed towards helping others.
Yeah.
Right. You need to literally open the door for others. The last life, the door was open for you. This life, you must help others, so you'll find that they have a humanitarian side to them.
Yeah.
But then they swing back to this self-important side. Like, well, dang, dude, you here to help other people, but you boast in yourself at the same time. Make your mind up, right? And they many times can use their self-importance to help others. That's the trick, when you use one to do the other. Yeah. Right? You'll find that many times that they have a very odd view of things. They're very much the rebel without a cause type individual. Right, because they themselves were aristocratic in the last life, where they concentrated their powers and energies into one side of existence, which is a higher class or themselves. So now they help the common man. Now they're here to help the downtrodden, the underdog. Right. That's what that Rahu in Aquarius can indicate many times. Right.
Yeah.
So we'll do K2 in the 9th.
We did K2 in the 9th.
No, we did
K2 in the 9th, Rahu in the 3rd.
No, we did K2 in the 1st, Rahu. We flipped those, right? We talked about K2 in the 5th, right? We talked about.
Oh, you know what? That's what I know what happened. All right, keep going. I know what happened.
All right. So, K2 in the 9th.
I had a chart in my head.
I got you. It happens, bro.
Yeah.
It happens, right? I got you. Right? Yeah. So, K2 in the 9th, right? The past life was spent being very dogmatic in light of what we would say, for the lack of better words, God. Netter is the proper word. Right?
Yeah.
They were very much disciplined about what they believed. Right? Don't test my belief. Right? They come in very staunch about what they practice. I'm a Muslim. Right. Don't test me about my Muslim-isms. Right. Right. They come in with a very full plate, full cup of God. But you know what happens when your cup gets too full, right? It spills and makes a mess.
Spills.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it becomes messy. People can't get to them. They're hard knocks when it comes to religion, right? They don't like to bend, if you will. They'll break. And they'll break you in the process of religion too. Love the Lord, man. Come on, taking you to church with me this weekend. Right. That kind of person. Well, Rahu's in the third house. Rahu's going to expand the intellect. He's going to inflate the intellect, rather, not expand. Let's not say expand. Jupiter expands. Rahu inflates. Big difference.
Yeah.
Rahu will not grow. He inflates like a balloon. And that Rahu inflation, because it's a head, right? It keeps inflating. It keeps inflating. So the intellect gets a little stronger and a little stronger. A little stronger, because it's trying to take away from that dependency on that dogmatism till you begin to question the dogmatic view.
Yeah.
You say, wait a minute, man. Now something ain't right. The intellect starts to do things like, wait a minute, nah, chief. You lying. That you living two lives here. You said you was Christian, man. You was up here in the pulpit like, Bishop Eddie Long. You wrong, man. Right?
Yeah.
They're part of a church organization, church, and then the pastor back there with his wife. And they're like, whoa, what? How's that? Man. But wait a minute, this supposed to be Christian, man. And then all of a sudden the intellect challenges, right? And they begin to think outside the box. Then Then they begin to question things in a sudden manner. Like, man, it still holds on to the past, but there's now a little more in something else they're checking out, right? So the intellect and the religion becomes the axis, right, where they begin to balance themselves, right? They test things about what they try, and they literally try to practice what they preach. I will say that, right? But they practice it so religiously and dogmatically that it begins to break down, because religion is not something of that nature that the supreme being can't be put into a box.
Yeah.
So I have to come out of that box at some point through the intellect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's Rahu, Ketu in that type of axis, right? Right. To flip it, right? Rahu now becomes, right? Ketu in the third house says the intellect holds, right? They are very smart individuals. Very smart. Their intellect is very sharp. Very, very, very sharp. Very witty. Very quick. They think quick. Right? They can put pieces of the puzzle together. You'd be like, wait a minute, hold up, man. How did you do that? Whoa. Wait a minute. You lost me. Right? Because the intellect is keen. They come in with that. Right? They can question things and break things down quickly. Boom, 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 boom. Right? But the intellect can only serve so much. And so they now have to search out the supreme being. Right? They have to wander and find and taste of the nectar of God, so they become insatiated with God. They become fanatics too. Just like the K2 in the ninth, but in a different sense, because now their intellect doesn't serve them. It only serves them in these small little circles. So now they have to literally become consumed with the supreme being, with their spiritual systems.
Yeah.
They live it
Yeah.
every day to the point where it literally takes their head off into another place. And a lot of times they'll find that in relationships they can suffer because the person now, and remember the ninth house is the third from the seventh, so the communication between the mate and that person can now take on a taste of always talking about God. And the mate's like, hey, can we talk about something else? Like, no.
Hilarious.
Right.
Yeah.
You get my drift, right?
Yeah.
So,
Indeed.
so you see what I'm saying? That's how you begin to read these things, right?
Yeah.
And that's Rahu and Ketu, right? And you can go things. You got Rahu conjunct planets, Rahu, right? That all talks about karma, right?
Yeah.
Pretty deep stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Now, Saturn. Man, we're gonna tie this up. I was gonna get into the Dwadashamsha, but I think these planets are really enough, right? Because
Yeah.
the Dwadashamsha is a whole nother level of reading something, and I really don't want to take people into that tangent, into that line of thought yet. I want to get maybe a little bit more understanding because a Dwadashamsha is 2.5 degrees of angle of a chart, or angle of a house, or just 2.5 degrees of any part of the chart.
Yeah.
So we're cutting the chart, and it maybe we'll do something along the lines of what Vargas or divisional charts really mean, right?
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah,
We haven't even
really
touched on that. So maybe down the line we'll do that, like, because right, the Vamshas, right? We're cutting it into 9, right? Dwada, right? We're cutting it into small pieces of 12.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll do that at another time, right? But we're gonna delve into Saturn, and then think that will take us out, and we'll get a good beat on how to read basics in karma basics, right?
Yeah.
So Saturn is the next one, right? And Saturn is, right, the planet that literally talks about scarcity, right? The planet that talks about where we feel the most inadequate, right? And so it has to deal with karma in that this is where you owe in your life.
Yeah.
You owe. All of it you have some karmic propensity to have a connection with. But Saturn is where you owe. You must pay. Right? A planet whereby we learn to overcome obstacles and restrictions so that we get stronger. Right? I don't know if you ever, because you're a little bit younger than me, but you might have seen it before. And some of the old heads out there, I'm sure, maybe run across it. There's a movie called Conan the Barbarian. Have you ever seen that movie?
I have, but I don't remember.
You don't recall
like
it, right? It's kind of old school,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm talking about the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not they got the kind of new stuff to rehash, but I'm talking about the real one, the old
Yeah.
one, right? In the movie, right? They have this Arnold Schwarzenegger's parents are killed.
Yeah.
Right. The Conan's parents are killed, right? Not Arnold, but Conan's parents killed, and he's taken over by this group of people, right? And these group of people are serpent worshippers for the most part, right? We won't get into the nuances of the movie and all its glory, but right, nonetheless, right? They're taken over. He's taken by these people, and he's taken captive. And they put him in this little these chains, and he's right on this. They got him on this big wheel, right? And so he's pushing this wheel, right? I'm talking about a kid. He's just a little kid, got chains, a little kid, and he's pushing. And as he's pushing, time passes, right? He's pushing and time passes, and these people around him begin to pass and wither, and they can't stand the pressure of the hard work that goes with pushing. That's all they do is push a wheel, nothing else.
Yeah.
Not because they feed him, they don't show all that, but nonetheless, that's that's what his kind of like prison sentence is. But in the end, right, the little kid grows up to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So pushing this wheel, even though it's hard penance, hard times, people dying around you, it made him strong. In fact, on his neck in the movie, he wears the wheel on his neck to symbolize that symbol of strength.
Yeah.
Hard work, discipline, effort, right? Well, the only time you have some place to do that, wherever Saturn is placed, is because that's where you lack. Right? Saturn takes 28 to 30 years, 29.5. You could round it, right? These are, Saturn is very slow moving, so it's so slow, it doesn't cross over into the sign in one fell swoop. It takes its time. So 28 to 30 years, right? It takes that long for it to transit and move around to make one complete circuit.
Yeah.
So in the house that it is when you're born, and the sign, but we'll talk about the house more than the sign. The house that it is in where you're born is the area of life where you have to do the most work. It's the area of life that you have to literally overcome the insecurities and the fears that you harbor. In the past life, right, it's the area where you laxed the most. Right? And Saturn, as we know, is the planet of karma, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is the planet of karma, right? Not the, right? Right? Planet of karma, right? So that's your wheel. That's your wheel that Arnold Schwarzenegger was pushing in Conan the Barbarian. That's the one where you're pushing in that area. You're pushing, you're driving, you're staying focused, you're steady, you're not giving up. Dang, it's hard. Man, this is rough. I'm tired. I'm weary. But in the end, it's your greatest strength.
Yeah.
In the end, when you have paid and you go and say, now examine my pravda, right? And you're in front of Anpu and he says, look and see your heart against his feather. You did your duty in that area, right? You lived to the fullest. You made the best of what you were given. Congratulations, right? You can move on to the next level. Or, well, you found wanting. You didn't exert any will. You didn't even try. You gave up. You didn't sacrifice. You didn't pay your dues. So now, I'm going to debilitate you. Oh. And so since you have no patience, since you have no, right, forbearance, since you have no, right, insight of how things are affected over long periods of time, you just wanted the quick gain. Saturn can be placed in a situation where it's not so viable. So Saturn, right, in any house, right, let's pick a house and we'll talk about it, right? Saturn in the 4th house, which is very challenging for most people, right? But let's look at good old Bill Gates, right? We could use him, and I want to use him for a very specific reason, right? Right. 4th house is the house of education. All right. And there's other things around his chart. It's exalted in his 4th house, and he is a Cancer ascendant. I had to play with it, like Gemini, Cancer, he's Cancer, right? Bar none, right? I think we talked about that before, right?
A little bit. We're going to do a show.
Right, we're going to do a show. Well, just at the sidebar of the show, Saturn in the 4th house deals with challenges, right? A hard mother, right? A home life that's extremely disciplined. Now, it could be on the side where the home life is completely oppressive, or it could be the home life where the parents are trying to get you to go to military school, where they want you to do well in college. They pay for your college education, and right, and you're like, man, I don't want to do that. right? But nonetheless, that Saturn in the fourth house can be very difficult for people because the home life is very structured, organized, disciplined, right? And you are there to pay your dues along the lines of living in accordance with a life that has already things that are preset for you to go through. We all have preset things, but I'm talking about things that you don't want to go through. The mother is very stern, right? Because there's something that you didn't learn and you weren't disciplined enough in the past life to now this life you have to get that lesson, take that pill, right? Drink your cod liver oil, if you will, right? When I was a kid, they gave you cod liver oil. Man, that was the worst tasting stuff to your palate on the planet, next to liver, right? And it's cod liver oil, so right, the liver's in it, right? Man, right? And you were tasting your head or your rear back because it's like, what the heck is this? But that's taking the medicine, right? Taking the being responsible to take and eat something that's not palatable but is good for you.
Yeah.
That's what Saturn produces in the fourth house, right? Saturn in, let's say, pick another house. Let's do another house.
Third.
Saturn in the third. So now, right, we're talking about the ability to express oneself, right? The ability to convey things in a very clear, concise, and etiquette an edifying way, and with etiquette. Communicating in a very smooth, reassuring, and overly confident way, not always trying to compensate.
Yeah.
Well, the last life, you didn't express yourself. You didn't talk. And so this life is a resistance in that area where now you are pressurized to talk. You're pressurized to express. You're pressurized to let someone else know. And if you're blocked, that's even harder. And that's where many of the complexes and the insecurities begin to build. And so it becomes so pressurized. It's like it pushes and it hones in. And it's like that spigot that you have on your hose in your yard. It becomes focused. And then you actually can do well because you're literally pushed and harnessed into that area.
Yeah.
Of communication, of expression, of moving from place to place. You won't move so much because if you move so much, you can't learn to express yourself in the first place. You can't be you're not stable. So literally, Saturn in the third can many times say that person will literally be blocked, right, from leaving certain areas, right, where they're literally congealed into one local area. And guess what it does? It helps you build your connections with your people around you. Right? It tightens the connections with people around you. Now, simultaneously, it aspects the ninth house. We won't get into that, right? Because that's all of them are simultaneously have aspects, right? But Saturn in the house itself, that congealment of karma is focused so that you learn your life lessons in that area, right? So all of these things can be used, right? Right? And I know somebody's like saying, well, man, do a sign. I hear him right now. All right, I got you. Right. So let's do a sign. Let's say
Scorpio.
Okay, let's do Scorpio. Right. So Saturn in Scorpio many times, right, will create someone that is hyper secretive. Right? They are pressurized around holding things that they deem unsavory to other people behind closed doors. Right? They literally are in a portion of their karmic processing whereby they are fear. They have many fears, right? And so they become stuck in how they deal with things, right? Scorpio is a sign of transformation, so they don't change very quickly. And when they do, it's like all of a sudden, because they've been so much resistant to this change, now they get stuck in this process of trying to stay the same, that literally they get crushed. Right? They get crushed to the point where they become all of a sudden completely different. And it doesn't happen because, remember, Saturn is a slow process. Right? Right? They're very tense. Right? So that tension, right? When someone's tense all the time, they seek to escape it. Right? And so they seek to escape it through sex, right? Sex behind the scenes, right? They escape it through, many times, can be criminality. Not all the time, because you have so many other placements that can offset this, right? But they can be very defensive.
Yeah.
Right? They can be very, very defensive because their karma is here to teach them, right, that you're not here to be scared. There's not fear. The greatest fear is fear itself. Right?
Yeah.
They can be very controlling because Scorpio doesn't want to let anything invade. Right? And so when you pin all that up, guess what happens? What can go wrong? What?
Will.
There you go. Right? Does that make sense?
Indeed.
Right? Their energy can be low. Right? The energy can be kind of low. Real low, simmering energy underneath. Right? And they can be great yogic masters as well, because at some point they literally can learn that, hey, wait a minute, I can go deep. I go so deep, I can do penance longer than others because the energy is less volatile because they're trying to pin it in.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of times they can have chronic illnesses too when they get older, when Saturn is old. Right. So does that make sense?
Indeed.
Right. Of course, Saturn in Aries, that's kind of a clear one to me. I mean, anybody that can't see Saturn in Aries, you know that the person's come to deal with patience, straight up.
Yeah.
They come to deal with being rebellious, not adhering to the law. Saturn is the law. Not law in the sense of Jupiter, I know, but Saturn in the sense of obeying the law. Living according to the law. I can receive the law, but for me to live it is a whole nother ballgame. And that's Saturn.
Yeah.
Right. Not wanting to finish things out. Right. Giving up so quickly that they move to so many different things and so many different times that literally they're exhausted. Right. So, and again, like, I could go on. I would be here forever. I think we got like an hour. What are we at? Like, like we're pretty far in, right? Right.
This is true.
Right. So, you see what I mean? Like, this stuff is deep, man. This stuff is real deep. We're at an hour, like, good deal, right? So,
yeah.
With that being said, you got any questions, brother? Any comments? Anything you want to drop in on the people, or drop in on me? Because I know, brother, you know this stuff pretty well.
You know what? I think we're good. I think we're good on this one. I think we've held the ears We've held their ears long enough. Well, the last couple shows, or at least last show, I think was pretty short.
It was.
We try to balance it out.
Imagine if we went into the Droit de Chambre, we'd be here, right?
Oh man, y'all be ragging on us, man.
Yeah, there they do. Oh man, come on, man, right? And we might do a part 1, part 2, cut it up on y'all, right? Make you thirsty,
Indeed.
right?
Absolutely. All right, cool. But yeah, I think this is enough to whet the appetite and get everybody digging, looking in their charts, reading, finding stuff. You know. Indeed. So yeah. Well, with that said, before we get out, Brother Rod, you got anything you want to impart on the people?
No, my brother. I think just stay tuned. These things are going to get greater later, right? This is just number 11, right? And as we go, we're going to get deeper. We're going to get into some things about the Varga charts. We're going to get into some things about retrogrades and, good stuff like that, where you can start to look and see things around you and kind of surmise things. And hey, you know what? That matches. That makes sense. That's applicable. So, stay tuned. Work with us. We had to take a break last week and kind of come back and reorient, but we're here and we're going to be here. So, for that being said, that's really all I got to drop on the people.
All right. Sounds good. So, like I said, again, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group at PUSHITFWD on Instagram and the website at that same spelling. Coming up this fall, we got a short film that will be dropping pretty soon that I think everybody will enjoy. Brother Ra, how did they get in touch with you in Calipurusha Astrology?
Yeah, once again, you hit me up on IG, Shechem Ra. A lot of you have hit me up on IG. So continue to do so. Continue to come through. Ask your questions. It doesn't mean I'm going to give you a whole book. I'm not going to answer your whole chart, right? I'm not going to do your chart for you because you hit me up. I will titillate you to where you have the interest of learning more for yourself. And if you, of course, would like to do and get a reading, let me know. I am stacked right now with readings, so kind of forgive a brother. I am literally doing 6 readings right now and maintaining a household, so it is a little challenging, right? And I'm teaching class, so brother's plate is full, right? But hit me up. We'll definitely schedule it out so that gives you some time to gather your ducats and get your ends right. I did want to say congratulations to the people that did win their basic horoscopic delineation. I'm sure you all had a ball with that. I know it probably seems like Chinese, if you will. But, it's a good thing to have so that you can begin the process of learning and knowing that self. So, again, congratulations to those winners last week, our last show that got an opportunity to get that done for you. Again, if you want to hit me up, Shechem Ra on IG or Shechem Ra on Facebook, or you can drop me a line on Calipurusha Astrology on YouTube as well.
Boom. So, real quick on the charts. To help y'all out a little bit, I'll probably, we'll probably post something on Instagram, showing how to just read the chart. Like, what's the house? What's the, what sign? What is, just the mechanics of it. To run that through real quick to help y'all out real quick. Yeah. All right. So, with that being said, we'll be here next week. I appreciate you all listening. Stay tuned, and we're out. Peace.